Hello and welcome to the Hollywood Critics Association's Foundation After Show. Each week on this show, we will discuss the latest episode of the Apple TV Plus series based on the beloved science fiction novels of the same name by author Isaac Asimov. I'm Jami Philbrick, entertainment journalist and critic for We Live Entertainment and a member of the Hollywood Critics Association. We have a great show for you tonight. We will be having a spoiler-filled discussion of the latest episode of the series, which just dropped tonight, and it is entitled Barbarians at the Gate. But as always, I am joined by my two co-hosts, Yael Tygiel and Nikki Fowler. Hey, guys!
Hello.
Hi.
How are you doing tonight? Are you excited to discuss another great episode?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, let's dive right in. So quick recap of this week. This was actually the first episode in this series, in the television series, that picks up pretty much right after the previous episode. The current day is worried that Selden's prophecy might actually be coming true. While Salvor and the Foundation fight off an attack and ready for the crisis to come. And in, I guess, I want to call it an end credit scene. It wasn't quite an end credit scene. It was still the very end of the episode, but Gale is found alive. So a lot to unpack there, a lot to talk about. Nikki, let me start with you. Just sort of your reactions to this episode.
I thought, again, the introduction to new characters, I'm all over it. From this, Zypher Opal dying and trying to figure out who her successor will be, and diving into Brother Day a little bit more on his idiosyncrasies. He's just not shaping up to be a true clone. So it's very interesting to see, a little bit about that. And a little bit of that was Brother Dawn. So Brother Days, more of this temper coming out, just a great performance by Lee Pace again in this episode. He's giving people heart attacks. So, it's a little bit more action than we've seen in some of the past episodes with the Anacreons now trying to take hold of Terminus. So definitely all in it. I'm still, dedicated to the series. I'm loving all of it.
We really were moving forward in this episode, I felt, in a big way, both for sort of allowing the audience to get an idea of where this story is actually going this season, as well as really at a quick pace, kind of moving forward. What were your thoughts on this week's episode?
Yeah, I really loved this week's episode. It gave me a lot of things I wanted to see, and a lot of questions were answered, which, as we know, I very much like answers. I really enjoy this whole new thing with Salvor, and like, what is she? Who is she? Why is she special? What makes her special? I'm 100% here for that storyline. I think the political side of the Empire I lost kind of interest in, but I still am interested in the clones and their personal lives. The new Brother Dawn is fascinating to me, and I'm really excited to see where that goes. I made lots of notes about this Lee Pace scene with the physical touch and what that means. I am so here to find out that. And when that got interrupted, I was like, no, go back to that, because that was fascinating. I really like that we have the after effects of the Starbridge collapse, which was a big deal in the beginning, and then it almost felt like we kind of forgot about it for a couple episodes. So to come back and be like, no, this is still affecting what's happening. I am so into this. I have a new prediction about what the little boy is, and I will hold on to it for predictions. But I really, really like this episode.
I agree. Oh, wow. There's so much to unpack from what you just said. Let's start with what you said about the the Empire intrigue and kind of waning interest in it. I sort of know what you mean. That was sort of what I really caught on to in the first episode, and then certainly enjoyed at the beginning of the last episode, seeing sort of the process of dusk leaving, becoming darkness, and dawn being born. That was super interesting. But I think for me, once we got on Terminus and really started to find out what was going on there, which obviously there's a lot more we get about that in this episode for sure, but really getting to see Salvor in the last episode, that's kind of where I'm not that I'm not still interested in the clones and how the Empire, will come back, weave its way back into the story. But I agree with you. Yeah, I think it's because the Terminus story is so strong at this point. I think that's why we may have lost some interest in the Empire. And Nikki, let me throw it to you and see, what do you think about that statement? Do you think that might be true a little bit?
I started to feel that way a little bit as well. And then when this episode started with this, introduction to, someone dying, this Zephyr Opal, and this clearly there's someone that's a threat to the Imperial Kingdom. And so that just added a new layer for me. And then the fact that we're bringing in more female actresses, I thought that was amazing, or characters. So yeah, I want to see, how is this Empire going to crumble, if it is going to crumble, and all of those dynamics. So I my interest came back when I saw that.
Came back to the Empire.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
This threat to the Empire, I was like, I'm done with the threats to the Empire. I'm fascinated by the clones. Like, that still fascinates me. What's going on with them, what they can and can't do, what can be done to them and what can't be done to them. I'm into that, and who they are to each other, and their fight for power. But this new external threat, I think it's because we keep hearing about places and people from other places. And I'm like, I don't know that. I don't know them, and I don't know what they want. And like, yeah, of course they're fighting for the throne. That's what people do when there's an empire. Like, that's what happens. So I would care about the clones and what's happening with them. And I care about what's happening with Salvor and this planet. And I'd like to limit it there for these storylines.
Well, what's interesting too is in this episode, there's two timelines, and we're to believe that they're pretty close, but I'm starting to wonder if maybe they're off by a couple of years, to the degree where maybe with the Foundation and everyone on Terminus saying, well, we've got to contact the Empire, we've got to talk to the Empire. What if there's not an Empire anymore? And what if they don't know?
Oh. And
what if the other planet of people that are attacking, and we'll get into that a little bit in a second, what if they do know? So there just seems to be something there that I'm waiting for, like a sort of another shoe to drop, kind of more information. I feel like there's a misdirect that's happening there. Nikki, am I maybe onto something? Is there a misdirect I'm seeing?
I think so. They did lose communication with the Imperial Kingdom, and with just the Anacreans coming over. I mean, Asimov's work is, about empires falling. So I feel that we're definitely just going to see more of the Empire portion. It should get more interesting. A lot of this, there are similarities to the book. So I think there's more to come with that. Yeah.
Now, before we jump into sort of that part of this episode with everything on Terminus, Yael, you brought up something interesting that I want to sort of dissect a little bit, which is this thing that was happening with, I guess, the new brother, or I guess it was Brother Dawn before he really became Day, and then now that he's Day, with the force field around him. I was a little confused by that. We saw him jump from the window, and I didn't know that was going to happen. And then, of course, we got a little bit more of that in that other scene. So, Yael, what were your thoughts on that, and what do you think is going on there, and the overall importance of it to the story moving forward?
Yeah, those are great questions. I interpret it as something that these clones have that keeps them safe, but also keeps them at a distance from people, keeps them separate. And I find that so interesting. And I would like to know about the brother, which of the brother that jumped, because was that brother aware that that was going to happen? Because it did not seem like it. It seemed like one of these brothers was trying to end himself, and I am fascinated to know why and how one continues to live after that, knowing that you cannot hurt yourself. There's so many questions that come with something like that. I did very much, and I'm going to say it again, enjoy the scene with Lee Pace and his lady friend. I think that was wonderful. And it feels like this show, Nikki, you mentioned that in the books there isn't romance. And so it seems like this show is trying to, in at least once an episode, give us something. And that was not enough, please. So I'd like more, please. Thank you.
It's interesting you say that, because there has been a sort of, for lack of a better term, I'll say a sexy scene in every episode, at least since the second. Yeah, only one maybe. Although I think this one may have had two, because there was also something with Salvor, if I'm remembering correctly.
Salvor,
yeah.
And then we have Brother Day and his friend.
They were interrupted, so it only counts as one.
Oh, okay. That's a good point. That's a good point. Nikki, let me throw it to you, and just on this subject, and since you've read the books, you have inside information we don't. Do you know something about this force field that Yael and I are trying to figure out?
Well, the clones aren't in the book.
I'm always forgetting the clones aren't in the books.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So we don't. So what's your guess then about where they're going with that?
Just with Brother Don testing the waters, clearly he's malfunctioning. He's just not cloning correct. And, he's glitching out and he's just testing the waters. It could be something that just kind of keeps him in line. I don't know if that has to do with Demerzel. So yeah, but there's, definitely something to it, but not sure.
Well, that's 2 weeks in a row now that I forgot the clones aren't in the book. So that just shows you, A, that I didn't read the books, and B, how important these clones are to this show and how much we are starting to really enjoy them as characters, and especially the performance from Lee Pace. Well, let's talk about Termares, what's going on there, Salvor, this crisis that's happening, some really interesting character stuff with Salvor fighting with even her parents at some points and other members of the Foundation. It really seems like she knows something, right? Like whether she actually knows something, or there's something sort of, inside her, but she seems to really have something that the Foundation they need to start trusting her a little bit more, I think. Yael, what were your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, I think Salvor's gifts are fascinating. I'm here for it. I want to know more about this. I know she wants to know more about this. I'm into it. I think it's so interesting that she has these gifts and is special. I will say somebody commented on our first episode video and said some interesting things about the story. And I'm going to bring it up here because I don't know if it's a spoiler from the books or if it's your prediction and theories, but there was something so interesting that stuck with me, and now I'm on it. So they'd said that Harry's idea was that the Foundation needs to be built without someone who can read the magic math and can read the future, so that there isn't someone there guiding them and adjusting it. And I find that so interesting because we now have Salvor, who kind of has abilities and could manipulate things. And I wonder how much, this episode asks the question, what if you are Selden's plan? And I think that that's so fascinating, because what if this has always been it?
Well, yes, yeah. I mean, a character actually says that in this episode, and this is a question that we sort of posed last week, and I said that I was going to ask each week: is Selden's plan? Is this the plan? And Nikki, I'll throw it to you. What do you think? Is Salvor part of Selden's plan?
She could be, I don't know, but there's just too many mentions on her having these instincts and this repeated luck that I believe her father mentioned. Repeated luck isn't luck. She's got these abilities. So, he planned, and, he saw the future. So, I have a feeling that, she definitely is part of the plan, maybe.
Well, it wouldn't be a very good series if she wasn't. I think that really needs to kind of tie together there. So that's interesting. Yeah, a lot of really interesting stuff going on with her in this episode. I want to also ask about her connection to the vault. And now I'm going to throw up a photo here, because clearly she has a connection to the vault. I mean, I think that the visions she's seeing are the vault communicating with her. It's even sort of hinted at that in the episode. I think someone says that might be the case. So Nikki, let me throw it back to you. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that she is in some way communicating with the vault? Is the vault helping?
It's just strikingly different from the book, where the vault was just non-distinct. It was just a part of the Encyclopedia Galactica, formation. There is a purpose to the vault. It has been mentioned in our comments, and people that read the book do know. I just don't want to spoil it, but yeah. So I believe Salvor is going to be some type of surprise, because his role in the book just didn't go this route. So there's definitely purpose to Salvor. And again, she is the only one that can access it. So there's definitely a connection with her, and, Harry sent them here. So,
Right.
I feel there's definitely a connection. And then she keeps seeing this little boy who, as I, mentioned in the last episode, I believe is Raish, now running with this knife. This is something, that was spoken a lot about in the book. Raish was, in the district of Dal, and he was running with this knife as a kid, and he was carrying knives like throughout, his adulthood. Harry mentioned that he was carrying a knife in the university. So I definitely feel this is a connection to Raish. How that's connected to Salvor, not sure, but she's definitely an important character moving forward, I believe.
I agree. I mean, I would almost say she's probably the lead character moving forward. Of course, Yael is back, and we'll get to that in a second. Let me ask you this, Yael. How do you feel about sort of the depiction of the vault on the show, and what we've seen, what we've learned? Sort of it's clearly shrouded in some mystery, and I think there's some reveals slowly coming. But just from a sort of an execution point of view, how do you feel they're doing with that mystery so far in the series?
I think it's actually a very clever depiction, because, when you hear a vault and you hear a Encyclopedia Galactica, this is not what you picture. This is not what I picture. And so I think it is this big, ominous thing in the sky. And I think that's so interesting. And I like what they've chosen to do with it. I like that it protects itself. And I'm fascinated to learn more.
Yeah. I also really liked seeing Salvor stick up for herself, not only against, and I don't know if I should say stick up for herself, but stick up for her point of view, not only just to her parents, but to the whole foundation, and that the other kind of leaders of the foundation that we've seen for a while, who seem like sort of bureaucrats, right? I liked that scene, and seeing her sort of come into her own power in a way, and really show that in a way in those scenes. And I just wanted to ask both of you, I'll start with Nikki, what was sort of your feel? I thought it was very lovely, very wonderfully acted.
Oh yeah. Leia did an amazing job with it. I still think she's just phenomenal in everything that she's doing in the series. Yeah. And, in the books, Salvor is basically, always at odds with with Lewis. He's from the books as well. And there's this grappling where Salvor wanted to prepare. He wanted to, protect the Foundation and think outside the box of the Encyclopedia Galactica. Lewis had a one-track mind. So it's really cool to see this kind of dynamic play itself out. Now, the crisis is slightly different, but it's still the same agenda. So really, really enjoyed that scene.
Yeah, that's interesting. And not just obviously that scene, but also she has some great action pieces in this episode. Yael, what was it like for you sort of getting to see Salvor both ways, as both a strong person and, physically emotionally strong and physically strong?
Yeah, I really love the interrogation scene. That was my my favorite strength of hers. That was my favorite version of her, because she is so smart and knows what she's doing and has her gifts. So I really love that. But I also loved the scene where she helps the other woman, or takes her through the gate, the barrier.
Right.
Yeah. And the way that because I was like, how are you bringing her through? And it was literally, I was like, I wonder if they're gonna have to walk to get, and they literally did what I was like, oh yeah, that's it. That's the way to do it. And I thought it was just so fascinating to see. And I really love this character, and I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
Awesome. I think we're all here for it. Before we get to predictions and favorite moments, let's talk about Yael. So she comes back the very end of the episode.
Sort of.
I think we just, yeah, exactly. Sort of. Her pod is opened. She opens her eyes and breathes in some air, and that's about all we get. We don't know who opened it for her, if it opened on its own, if she's on a planet, if she's still, I would assume, not floating through space anymore, but we don't know. So, Nikki, let me ask you, first of all, was it a relief to sort of see her come back at the end of the 4th episode after she disappeared at the end of 2nd? And what do you think's going on here?
Absolutely a relief. I was like you, where's Yael? And really good to see her. And obviously, I think we're going to see a lot more of her in the future episodes, the next episode, actually. And yeah, I'm curious to know how they're going to spin Yael's character. As I mentioned, she kind of, disappears in the books, and she's not really a main character. But, there are a lot of, kind of in the fandom, people are kind of, trying to guess if she's going to have something to do with the second Foundation, because there is a second Foundation in the book. So yeah, definitely, I feel we're going to see some connection to Harry, and yeah. I'm not going to spoil it.
Okay. You have some inside information. Yael, let me pose the same question to you this way, which is, do you think Yael woke up in the timeline we left her in, or do you think she's now in the current timeline, the timeline of the rest of this episode?
Great question, because I think one of two things. Either she woke up in her timeline and we're going to continue that story, or because Hugo mentions that he is like almost 70 because he has been traveling through cryosleep, and that she very possibly is in a different, not necessarily even in the timeline we're watching, a future timeline. So yeah, to answer your question, I think one of those two things.
I agree with you, because I don't think that would have been in the story, that character mentioning that. You know what I mean? Like those things don't just happen. Like that's in there for a reason. So yeah, I think you might be onto something. And I see Nikki smiling because she knows the answer.
You know everything.
I know you too. Favorite moments, Nikki, let me start with you.
Oh, favorite moments. Just the visuals. I'm just so captivated with the visuals. Just when that, I guess it's a hovercraft. I'm not sure what they're calling it in the series, but with the whatever, not, it was some type of precipitation, I don't know what it was, dust blowing. It was just so incredible. Even when Salvor is in the Hummer with the huntress, Farah, holding the gun to her, and just those visuals were just, just loved all of it. Yeah. So again, I love it all.
Yep, absolutely. Yael, your favorite moments of this episode?
It is definitely when Lee Pace's character.
I don't even know why I asked. I should have known.
Look, I'll add to it. So not just the scene with him and his lady friend, but I wrote down the quote because I thought it was so funny. When Dermazel says, "I understand that the Empire has a physical need for intimacy, but the current matter supersedes this need." That was, as much as I hate the interruption, that's how you interrupt, is you explain that it supersedes that need.
Absolutely. I think for me, it was sort of Salvor overall in this episode, really realizing in the moment that like, this is our badass character. This is our hero. This is the person we're going to kind of follow through most of this series. And, I loved like the fight scene when she sort of took them by surprise, when she's sort of surrounded by them with the bow and arrow. And then just seeing her like stick up for herself against the Foundation in those more kind of talky scenes. I really enjoyed. And shout out to the great Clark Peters, who plays her father and is one of the great actors of all time. So it's nice. It's always nice when he pops up in anything, in a movie, in a TV show. So it's great to see him. We have a couple of minutes left. Let's get some predictions. Nikki, what are some predictions for next week? And no cheating, real predictions, not what you read.
Yeah. Just, I guess, with this whole Anacreon dynamic, I feel like we're going to definitely just get more answers on that. And I feel that's just going to, develop further. Predictions. Well, I'm just going to go with that. I've been thinking about, what I mentioned before, as far as Gail being a part of the Second Foundation. So that's a really far off prediction, but I feel there's something to that since they're building her character into the series. So, yeah.
Yeah, I hope that we pick up with Gail. I'd love to get more of that answer. And I'd love to continue the story where we are in this episode. But if I have to make a prediction, I'm thinking we're going to kind of jump around a little bit. We had 2 episodes that were basically the same timeline in a row. And with this series, I'm not going to bet that there's going to be a third in a row, unless that's going to end up being how the series kind of goes forward through the rest of it. I'm leaning towards it's going to jump around a little bit more. So I wouldn't mind, depending on where Gail really is in the timeline, I'd love to get some more answers to what's happening there, and then maybe jump to another part of this, huge story. And then we'll come back to the crisis and everything, maybe an episode, I don't know, 5 or 6 or something. We'll see. Or 6 or 7. Well, that is all the time we have.
I did not get to predict.
Oh, I apologize. You're right. I went straight to it. Yael, please. I apologize.
I wouldn't usually care, but I have such a big prediction.
I want to hear what you have to say.
Okay. So my theory is this, and it's wild. And as a reminder, I haven't read the books. So if anyone who's like, Yael, you're crazy, I haven't read the books. Okay. Salvor's power and the child that she's seeing, I'm going with Nikki's. Yes, it is Raish, but instead of her like seeing image of him, she can actually see and communicate with the past. She can communicate with other timelines. And that is how we're going to get Gail back into this timeline, is she's going to communicate with her and bring her through. That is my guess. I know it's out there, but that's it.
But Nikki's smiling, so I think you're on to something. I think, unless she's got a really good poker face.
No, it's a great prediction, and it's a major theme in Asimov's work. Like I mentioned last week, the mule was brought up in the very beginning of episode 1, and this character is someone who can, manipulate and kind of see things. So it's just a major theme. So Yael is definitely onto something.
I think so too. I like that.
I was crazy.
Like the sound of that. No, I don't know if there's any crazy predictions when it comes to this show. Oh, but that really is all the time we have for this week. I want to thank my two co-hosts as always. Nikki, let everyone know where they can find your work and follow you.
Well, you can follow me at Nikki Fowler 28 anywhere on social media. I'm at Glitter Magazine as well, and I'm on the Hollywood Critics Association YouTube at times, as well as the International Press Academy.
Awesome. And Yael, thank you for joining us again. What a great show. Tell everyone where they can follow you and find your work.
Yeah, thank you. You can find me everywhere at Yael Tygiel. That is YAELTYGIEL. You can find me on this channel, the Hollywood Critics Association YouTube channel, on Wednesdays for Hollywood Approved with Kristen Maldonado. You can also find me Sundays on the Fanversation YouTube channel, talking Law & Order SVU, on our podcast, Law & Order S Review. And just recently, the second half of the first season of Leverage Redemption came out on IMDb. So you can find the official Leverage Redemption After Show, a very distinctive podcast on Electric Now. So check that out.
Awesome. And I'm Jami Philbrick. You can find me at Instagram and Twitter at Philbrick, and also at my name on Facebook. I also co-host the HCA's Pop Council podcast every Monday at 11 a.m. Pacific time. Please check it out. And we want to thank you so much for watching. Please make sure to hit the subscribe button, like this video, and tune into the HCA's Foundation After Show every Friday at 12:01 a.m. Pacific time and 3:01 a.m. Eastern time. Until next week, thank you so much, and we'll see you again then.